Welcome to Talk with Tara, the podcast where we dive into the bold, the funny, and the fascinating. I'm Tara, your host, bringing you unfiltered conversations on life, love, and everything in between. Hit that follow button so you're always in the loop. And now let's get started. Today, I'm really excited to have the founder of Zinnia on. She's dedicated to helping women like myself who've gone through separation and don't really know where to go afterwards when it comes to divorce. I just wish I would have known someone like this when I was going through my situation. I really didn't know where to turn. I went online, I did all these searches. There were some meetup groups that were kind of funky, but I remember a couples therapist sent us some meetup groups on divorce, but I just didn't feel comfortable. And God, if I would have known you, Lori, it would have been such a lifesaver. But before I get into it, let me do a quick background on Lori. She's the founder of Zinnia, a platform dedicated to guiding individuals through the challenges of divorce and major life transitions. With a diverse career spanning retail leadership, consulting, and now coaching, Lori brings a wealth of experience to her work. Before launching Zinnia, she built both physical and online stores for major brands like Sephora and Toys R Us. She later transitioned into consulting while balancing full-time motherhood. I did the same thing, by the way, a shift that became even more critical when one of her children faced a severe health issue. Driven by a passion for helping others, Lori spent over 2 years developing Zinnia, earning certifications in divorce coaching at CDC and mediation at Northwestern University, while also studying family law at UC Law, San Francisco. With a deep understanding of both the legal and emotional complexity of divorce, Lori is committed to empowering individuals as they navigate tough transitions. And divorce is very tough for many. So before we get into it, I would love to know what inspired you personally to create Zinnia.
Hi, Tara. Thanks so much for having me here today. I'm super excited to chat with you.
Me too.
So starting Zinnia was a multi-year labor of love. I went through my own divorce about 7 years ago. And after that, I would frequently find myself on the phone with a friend or a friend of friend who was considering going through a divorce or was in the process of a divorce. And they all had the same questions. Do I need to hire a lawyer? Can I keep the house? Will I have to share custody? And after a number of years of these conversations, I realized that they all had the same needs. Like they needed community, they needed resources, they needed someone to listen. And I thought, wow, this would have been great if I had had a resource center during my divorce. And so I, as you mentioned in the bio, I started Zinnia with the hope of having a full comprehensive community center for women, mostly women. We actually see some men as well as they go through one of life's greatest challenges.
This would be really great for men because as women, we're so much more open to being vulnerable with each other and finding help where they don't know where to go. They're lost. And men with men's groups and things like that are happening now in this new age, I think it would be great for men to have a place as well. But we'll focus on the women because that's what you're focusing on now. One of the questions I wanted to ask Lori, is the thought of divorce can be really scary for people. I know it took me years to make this decision. How do you recommend people figure out if they're ready to leave a marriage?
That's such a great question. It is. I find when women finally come to me, they've been thinking about this or ruminating for years and years. And ultimately, the only one who can decide if it's time to end your marriage is you. A lot of women are looking for a magic bullet or some clear evidence that gives them the confidence to end their marriage. And that magic bullet often never appears. And they're just left wondering, should I or shouldn't I? One of the things that we're really good at Zinnia is we help you stop ruminating and start thinking productively. We have tools and processes that help you understand what the process of divorce will actually look like. So that gives you information. We help you look at your finances. So you have a clear picture of what your financial situation could possibly look like post-divorce. We help you vision what your life could look like, what your custodial relationship will look like. And then, once you're done with the divorce, what do you want your life to look like? And then with that information, you can stop ruminating and just start thinking very critically about, is this the right choice for you or not?
Yeah. For example, if you've been a stay-at-home mom for 20 years and you decide to leave, I mean, you're entitled to alimony usually if your husband is the primary breadwinner, and you're entitled to child support if you have 50-50 custody or full custody or whatever your arrangement is. But maybe it's a time for women to say, okay, that's not enough for me. I need to go back to work, and like start planning that before they decide to separate. Start kind of planting their seeds so their flower turns into a zinnia, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an important part of the process. I mean, the ruminating never gets you anywhere. It's having clear understanding of what your life will look like and a clear vision of what you want it to be. You know, if you've always wanted to get a degree, maybe you work on your degree and stop thinking about whether or not you need to get a divorce. Or maybe you go back to work before you get a divorce and you decide, actually, I'm great with this. This is working for me now. And then you don't need to divorce. Or maybe you do. But the important thing in making that decision is to stop ruminating, to stop the loop of thinking in your head and to start coming up with solutions so you can have a plan to move forward.
So what is the difference? I mean, I know when I was going through my separation, I was like, what is mediation? What is court? I hear these women say, oh, I have the best lawyer. And then I heard a guy that I knew say, oh, I have the worst judge. He's pro-woman. Like, I mean, there's so many, like, what are the steps? So let's say if you're not amicable, isn't it better to go to mediation than blow a bunch of money? Because I think a lot of women think this, Lori. I think they think my husband's going to pay for all the legal fees, and they don't realize it's coming out of the community property, and
Absolutely.
they're actually paying the legal fees. So ladies, if you are taking your husband to court and he's paying, $200,000 in legal fees, guess what? You're paying half of that. You're not going to get $100,000.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The process of divorce can be long and drawn out and messy, or it can be collaborative. There's actually a new divorce procedure called collaborative divorce. I'm generally not a fan of it, but it's important to understand what your different options are. Collaborative divorce is when you have a lawyer and he has a lawyer, and all four of you go see a mediator. And sometimes your CPA comes in, and sometimes your financial advisor comes in. And so you have this like team effort of divorce. That is such a costly way to do it.
So expensive.
And you still have two lawyers, puffing up their chests and trying to duke it out. So personal, obviously I always work with clients to help them do what's right for their situation. But my personal belief is that if you and your husband can be civil on any level, mediation is the most efficient, most effective way to get through it with the least amount of, the lowest cost and the least amount of controversy and conflict.
And you want that, right?
Absolutely.
You want that for your children. You want that for your pocketbook. Like, ladies, don't think, like I said, because he has to pay the legal fees, you're not paying for it. I mean, you are paying for half of those legal fees. I totally think this is a myth that women think, oh, I'm going to, get the best lawyer, $1,000 an hour. They're paying for it.
Yeah. It is, mediation is the absolute best way to get through the divorce with the least amount of conflict. And don't forget that when you're done with the divorce, if you have children, you will still need to have a relationship with this person. And so you don't want it to be highly conflictual. Your kids will feel that, you will feel that. It doesn't serve you. If divorce is the path forward, you want to get through it as civilly as possible, regardless of the reasons why the divorce is happening in the first place.
Yeah, it's hard for somebody, though, if it's like deception or, abuse, or it's really hard to keep that non-emotional lens in the situation. So I have a lot of empathy for people, but I mean, if you can just be civil, it's important. If you don't have that kind of animosity, it's so important I think, for the kids to see that, to see how civil you can be. How do you help people? So you sit down with them and you look at their finance and you say, like, this is your situation. Like, if I went to you and I said, I'm thinking about getting separated, I'm scared about my financial situation. We sit down and we go through it, or how does it work with Zinnia?
You come to me and you say, I'm thinking about this. What's the process? And I walk you through the process of divorce in all of its steps. And one of those stages is that you and your spouse both have to submit financial disclosure agreements. So it's a list of every asset, both, separate property, community property, everything that you believe you own. And he has to do likewise. And then you compare them. So in the beginning, we do that. You and I sit down and you go through all of your financial situation with me. And then we take our best guess at what it's going to look like for you on the other side of divorce. We can't be 100% certain it will look like the way we devised it, but we can get pretty close.
And then what about when you do hear things like court? How do you end up in court versus if you have two attorneys and then you have to go in front of a judge? I never understood that really.
Yeah. If both of you choose to have representation, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go to court.
Okay.
But if you cannot agree, you absolutely cannot agree on a settlement, you will then end up in court. And you want to avoid that at all costs.
I think that costly. Okay. Well, that's a good tip, right?
It is. So everything you say in court, you can then, your friends and family and children can read the transcript. So all of your dirty laundry will be aired publicly. It is also, you take control away from yourselves and you give it to a third party. Mm-hmm. Through mediation, you and your spouse have control. You guys can devise a settlement agreement that works for both of you, whether it's common practice or not. It's whatever works for you. If you both agree to it within the bands of the way the state looks at child custody, you have to accommodate some state regulations. But primarily, you can do whatever makes sense to you. When you give it to the judge and the judge gets to decide, it's out of your hands.
Right.
He or she can decide your future for you. And if you absolutely cannot come to an agreement with your spouse, then that's what's going to happen. It behooves you absolutely to come to an agreement. And by the way, you might think it's worth going to court for that $30,000 that he won't give you. Like, I have a client who is going to court because they will not agree to $30,000. They've spent that times 5 in legal fees.
Oh my gosh. Do not end up in court if you can help it. It just hurts your kids at the end. It's your college fund. Gone. 30 grand is a state school. Gone. Oh my gosh. How do you, as a mediator, because I know that you do mediation as well, what are some tips in finding a mediator? How do you remain objective?
Well, tips on finding a mediator are interview them, get recommendations. I have a resource list that I give to my clients, vetted mediators that we like our clients to work with. But you just have to interview them. Both of you should interview the people that you're considering and then determine which one you like best. As a mediator, how do I remain neutral and unbiased? I will admit it's hard. Sometimes you have a,
favorite.
Sometimes you have a favorite, but it is vital because my ultimate job is to make sure that there is a settlement agreement, like a non-contestable settlement agreement that they will both sign, that the courts will sign off on. And that's my job. So if I show favoritism, then every question I ask or decision we try to drive towards will be questioned by the party who feels like they're out of favor. Mm-hmm. And that's not conducive to a good settlement agreement. So you put your big girl pants on and you breathe and you remain neutral.
Yeah. And I think a tip I would give people is make sure you like your mediator from the beginning and you don't feel that bias, because once you go down this path, you've already invested. And then to start out with somebody new is extremely expensive because you're kind of stuck. Once you pick a mediator, you're stuck with that person. I have learned how to have boundaries, but a lot of women don't have boundaries and they don't like conflict. I'm fine with conflict, but a lot of people hate conflict. So they're not going to tell the mediator, hey, I feel like you're favoring.
Yeah.
Because they're scared to do that.
Another tip, and if you are someone who doesn't like conflict, who sort of freezes under pressure, working with a divorce coach is incredibly helpful in that arena.
Yeah.
A divorce coach will make sure that you have an agenda for your mediation session prior to that, and will work with you on what you want your outcomes to be. So if you're sitting in that mediation session and your ex is on you about not taking the house and you're going to have to sell the house, and you freeze, you will already know what you want your outcome to be. You can breathe and settle into it because you don't have to make a decision when you're flooded with emotion. You already know what decision you want to make. So working with a coach can really set you up for success in your mediation sessions or your sessions with your legal representation. And I know it often seems like there's just, oh my God, hiring a coach is just one more additional expense. I'm already spending so much money on divorce. It can save you a ton of money.
Yeah. It's like when you do your kitchen and you pick the cabinets and you don't use an interior designer or an architect, and you get hosed on spending more, screwing up, and then you have to pay for it at the end.
Yeah.
That's
or it just takes longer and costs more. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So it's like, try to just figure it out in the beginning so you're prepared, because I do think a lot of women freeze in that situation.
Yeah.
I don't want to generalize because there are a lot of baller women out there who are, strong and independent, but there are a lot of women who aren't, and their husbands are out in the working world and they're negotiating and fighting every day in the boardroom, and they're home with the kids, and their negotiating is a little bit different. They're the boss of the house. And so these guys go into these mediations and they just chip away at the woman. I mean, I've heard stories, and the woman's just like acquiesces. She feels guilty. I remember one in particular, I feel so bad. He says I'm so greedy and I'm this. And I'm like, you're not greedy. You just want what's fair, you know?
Yeah, it is definitely a consideration. When women are flooded with emotion, that freeze absolutely happens. And ex-husbands can take advantage of that. Women are sort of, the peacemakers of the family oftentimes.
Yeah.
And, if you are trying to make your husband happy so he doesn't divorce you, that can turn out badly for you.
Yeah, I agree. How do you help members shift from surviving their divorce to truly thriving afterwards?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Zinnia, we are solidly future focused. I think if you have a vision for what you want your best life to look like, and you can understand what the steps are that you have to take to get to that point, you make decisions much easily as you walk down the path of divorce. So that's how we do it. We talk to our clients from the get-go about what they want life to look like 3-4 years after the divorce. Are they working? Have they taken that advanced degree, or have they, gotten that advanced degree? Are they writing a novel? Who knows what they want their life to look like? We help them visualize that, and that helps them activate throughout the divorce process and stay focused and moving forward. Thriving is all about living in your best self, living your best life. And if you can see it, you can do it. If you don't have a vision for it, you can't get there. So we start in the beginning, and every choice we make along the way is to help you get to where you want to go.
So I have friends, that are going through divorce, and they can't imagine another woman raising their kids, and sometimes people stay in marriages till the kids are in college just for this reason, right? Because they don't want to miss a day, of the kids coming home from soccer or whatever, being in the play and having to deal with another woman in the audience watching their kid. So how do you get this question? Like, how am I going to deal with not seeing my kids 100% of the time? And
all the time.
Yeah. And also, how do I deal with another woman who may be, 25 years old raising my kid?
Yeah. Hopefully it's not a 25-year-old, but oh my gosh, that is such a primary concern for so many of my clients. How do you cope with having another woman raise your kid? Well, she's not raising your kid. She's another person loving your child.
I like that.
I think the best way to do it is to communicate. You communicate and you listen and you communicate some more, and you fake a happy relationship with your ex if you have to, but you have to communicate. Ideally, you guys would talk frequently about what's best for your children to make sure you're on the same page. If you can't have those conversations with your ex, you have to be a neutral, safe space for your children. So when they come home from their dads and there's a new woman there, they can talk to you about it. And if you are so angry at their dad that they can't talk to you about him, that's not good for them. So you just have to, I'm a big believer in breathing, like just keep breathing, breathe deeply, and create a space for your children to come to you and tell you about their experiences, and be open to the possibility that she could be awesome for them. She could just be another person who they can talk to. We all need that.
Yeah, don't be jealous. It's like having a wonderful nanny. If your kids love your nanny, it's just another person. It's not going to take the place of being a mom, right?
No, nobody takes the place of being the mom.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, you make the decision, I'm going to get a divorce, or I'm going to separate. And you go, oh my gosh, it's going to be so expensive for us to have two houses, even though we both do well. Even somebody who does well, it's expensive. And let's say you're not, you're just making ends meet. It's even more expensive. What are some modern day, I know there's nesting. So can you talk about some modern day ways of people end up living together, right? Because they can't afford getting separated. Mm-hmm. So any suggestions on different ways to make it work, to try it out?
Yeah. So I actually have clients in every variety of living experiences. One client lives, like they're still sharing the same marital bed, but they're separated and getting a divorce.
Wow.
I know. My thoughts on nesting are, I'm generally not a fan. For those of you who don't know what nesting is, it's when you maintain the children in their marital home and you get another apartment. And so when you're at home with the kids, your spouse is at the apartment. And then when it's his turn to be with the kids, you go to the apartment. And I think that's a very feasible intermediate step. Is it a great long-term solution? I don't think so. Here's a for example. For example, first imagine that your ex has a girlfriend and they're having sleepovers in the apartment. When you go to the apartment, are you going to be okay sleeping in that bed? It might feel a little weird to you. Now imagine that he's introduced her to the kids. And so when it's his turn with the kids at the home, he invites her over and they have a sleepover in your marital bed. And maybe she forgot her makeup remover and she borrows yours. And maybe she wants to use your bathrobe because it's fluffy and comfy. It's just weird. And so I think, like, for your own sake and for your own ability to actually move forward, setting up your own household is important. And perhaps that's not an immediate step, but it should be your long-term goal, because it's your energy that creates the home environment you want to have for your kids. And when you're coming and going from that home, that energy gets disrupted. And when you have people coming into your home that just feels weird, that energy stays. That weird energy stays. And I feel like your kids, often people will think, well, it's what's best for the kids. But kids adapt. If you create a wonderful home environment and your spouse creates a wonderful home environment for your kids, they're going to be okay. They generally are. It's up to you to make sure they're okay.
What if you can't afford it, though? Can't you? I would suggest talking to your ex and saying, okay, if we're going to do this nest because we're trying to save money, no women or no men in the nest. Do it outside and make rules if you have to, right? If you don't have a choice, because some people just don't have a choice.
Yeah, but there's no guarantee they're going to honor that decision.
Yeah, that's true. It depends. Depends on your relationship. That's so interesting. Can you tell me the laws are pretty straightforward with community property in California? Can those be screwed up if you commingle?
So community property is any property gained during the marriage that belongs to both of you, but it's gained through the efforts of your labor. Separate property is anything you had before the marriage, or any gifts or income or receipts that you gained on your separate property during the marriage. But it has to be very clear. Once you commingle, it becomes very muddy. So here's a for example. Let's say you have a 401k before the marriage, and the last deposit you make to it is the day before your wedding. You never make another deposit to it. You get divorced. That is very clearly your separate property. So let's say you, in the middle of your marriage, you change jobs, you take that okay and you turn it into an IRA, and every year your parents gift you $10,000 for your birthday. You take their check, you put it into your IRA. That is very clearly your separate property. So when you get divorced, you can't contest it. It's very clearly yours. However, let's say you get a giant bonus during your marriage, and you take that bonus straight from the company and you put it directly into your IRA. You've now commingled those funds because that bonus is community property, and you put it into your IRA so that, let's say it's $10,000, that $10,000 and all of the growth from that $10,000 is community property. So you're going to have to trace where the source of the $10,000 and the increase, and take that out of your IRA and put that into the community property pool. The laws are clear, but the tracing and the commingling just makes it very, very blurry. If you are considering divorce and you've commingled all of your assets, it might cost you more than you're going to recapture in forensic accounting. Like, forensic accountants are super expensive. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you just have to go with the fact that it's too commingled. You can't even trace any of the inputs. So you're just going to consider it all as community property.
Okay. Well, as we wrap things up, do you have any suggestions for women who start dating after divorce, or separation? When's a good time to start?
That's interesting. Start when you're ready. Definitely don't start too soon. I think dating can be a roller coaster of emotions. It can be amazing and so much fun, and it can be devastatingly heartbreaking. If you're not ready, if you're not approaching dating with an abundance mindset, it can be really hard for you. So, for example, if you are out there to find your next guy, and that is your number one concern, it can be really hard. You could go through a lot of dates and not find the guy and just be so heartbroken that you're going to be alone forever. If you approach it with the idea that you're going to go out and have a nice evening with a new gentleman, and you might have a good conversation, you might laugh a little, that you're going to have a good time. And so I tell clients, make sure you're ready. Make sure you're not just looking to replace, your ex-spouse or trying to meet a new individual. Be open to the possibility that this new person could be completely different from your last person. Just be open and don't be committed to an outcome. Once you've decided that this is your person and you hang on, you start missing signs that you should be paying attention to, I think.
That's good. I also noticed that there are some women who decide to get divorced and they say, I am so happy that I'm alone, that if I never meet anyone again, I don't care. I'm just so happy. Those are the people that for sure they should not be with their husband, right? Because they're so happy. But I think that's a kind of a good mindset, because they're like, I'm happy being on my own. I'm happy doing my own things and cultivating friendships. And as soon as you want to fill this void with somebody else, that is the wrong approach. I like your approach about the abundance mindset, because it's definitely a mindset. And if your mindset is needy, they're going to feel your neediness, and you're just going to find the same kind of person you're with that you left. It's just going to be another repeat. So do the work on yourself. This is the time to do the work on yourself. Figure out why you ended up with this person that you're not with anymore. I mean, if you just grew out of love, fine. But if there's something more complex, figure it out, do your work. Get grounded, enjoy your life, find things that bring you joy, enjoy your kids. I really savor the time with my kids all the time. Yeah. And
and explore who you are as a person at this stage in your life.
Yeah.
You may decide you love to paint or you love to travel, and your, ex never liked to do that. So you have this new world of opportunity open to you. It is such a great time to explore who you want to be as a person.
Yeah. Well, this has been really good, Lori. I think that one of the questions I was going to wrap up with is what makes you different from these other meetup group kind of things,
Yeah, we're not a meetup group. Although, in our heart, we're a community center. And ultimately, the big goal for Zinnia is to open a physical space where you can, walk in, have a mediation session, see your therapist, get a coach. You can grab a coffee, check out a library book, meet your support group there. I mean, we're a holistic approach to this entire stage of life you're in. Mm-hmm. Ideally, we take you from the start to the finish. The start, helping you decide if separation or divorce is right for you. Finish is like, come to our dating profile seminar where we all make our own dating profiles and help each other pick out pictures and phrase your about me profile.
I'll come help teach that class.
Okay, you come help us with that one. But yeah, no, we want to be sort of your one-stop shop for all things needed during this incredibly challenging time.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much. This has been so wonderful. But before we wrap up, can you tell our listeners how they get a hold of you? I'm going to also put in the show notes, but it would be great coming from you.
Perfect. Super. We have a great website. It's called, the address is zinniaproject.com. So that's the flower Zinnia project.com. And you can see us there. You can schedule a phone chat with us just to get some more information, see what all our services are. And that's generally the best way.
Thank you so much. This has been really wonderful.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Talk with Tara. If you loved today's episode, please follow the show and share it with a friend. Stay tuned. There's so much more to talk about. See you next time.